Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between Norsca, led by Wulfric the Wanderer, and the Skaven, who are going to be led by the filthiest of all rats, Lord Skrolk. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So up in the first rank, I do have an entire line of the standard Marauders, which are pretty good against Skaven. They're relatively fast with 35 speed, so that allows them to catch some of the quicker Skaven units. They have shields against heavy skirmisher plays, so if you're seeing gutter runners and slingers and things like that, they're going to be pretty durable. And honestly, with their rage mechanic, they do a pretty good job, even against things like storm vermin and clan rats and all that kind of good stuff. So the whole front line is going to be Marauders. The secondary line is going to be Berserkers. So these guys are going to be doing the heavy lifting. Granted, my opponent, the mighty Professor Pone, did bring a lot of storm vermin with swords and shields in the front line, which are very good against Berserkers. So I like that pick quite a bit from him. But regardless, the Berserkers with a little bit of magic support from fire can still do pretty good. They're very similar to swords. They have like incredibly high weapon strength. And yes, their armor piercing, proportionally speaking, is low, but it's still not terrible at 13. Plus, they do have that bonus for infantry, so we'll see how they do. We do have the Berserkers, and I don't think we have Brutes of the Hound. I think we wanted to cut corners a little bit and just get the standard variants. On top of that, we got a Skinwolf Werekin. He's basically there to deal with doom wheels and large targets. We have a Firecaster with Flaming Sword of Ruin, Burning Skull. Is it Burning Skull or is it Burning Head? I always get that one wrong. I want to correct myself now. It's the Burning Head. And then the Cascading Fire Cloak. Wulfric's going to be on his Pimp Chariot here. He's going to be Surtha Rick this game. We got a couple groups of Marauder Hunters with Javelins to take out Rat Ogres and Plague Furnaces and pretty much all those big targets. One group of Elite Marauder Champions in the back, and that is it. And for Professor Pone, I really like his army quite a bit. He's got a front line of Storm Vermin with these swords and shields, two groups of the Deathglow Bombardiers, which I was not expecting these rats, but they could potentially really lay a lot of pain into my Famir, as well as Wulfric and some of my other high-value targets there. So he's got two of those. He's got Lord Skrolk, of course, with the standard kit. He's got a couple groups of Rat Ogres, it looks like, some Clan Rat Spears in the back, a Plague Claw Catapult, which is going to be defended by Storm Vermin with Halberds, and that looks to be it. A pretty elite Skaven army. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So right now I am advancing here, and you can see that this Plague Claw Catapult is going to be laying some pretty substantial Overwatch fire. I think it was actually shooting at some of my Berserkers here. So I think it made some contact, and let's see if it hits this time. And yes, a much better hit right there. Takes out about 10 models, and does some pretty good HP damage. And of course, any way you can get rid of their Frenzy quicker is going to be pretty solid. So if you can damage them ahead of time, always a good thing. So Surtha Rick is going to be pushing up the hill here. You can see that the Skinwolf Werekin is going to be pushing up as well. And basically, I'm just kind of eyeing his army now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get the two Javelins, focusing these Rat Ogres, this Javelin here. But I kind of noticed that he was a little bit overloaded on this flank. He had Skrolk and all these Rat Ogres, so these groups of Marauders and Berserkers are a little bit isolated. And what I decided to do, instead of being patient and squaring up and facing them head on, is try and overload this flank. So you can see all these guys are going, but on that same note, I'm taking some damage on the approach. These Marauders taking those Death Globes to the face, and then these Storm Vermin with these swords and shields. Obviously going to do pretty well against Marauders. Yeah, you can see they're having a really bad time here because I think there's no leadership penalty on those Death Globes, but man, 72 missile damage. So the Berserkers are in. They're doing pretty well considering they were already really beat up on the approach here. I do use the Flaming Sword to try and buff them up. Over here, we do have the Marauders fighting against the Clan Rat Spears as well as the Rat Ogres, and it's actually going really bad on this flank. So I think it was a bit of a mistake in retrospect to commit everything to this far side here and try and overwhelm this flank. I should have just probably gone right up the center because a lot of my formation is being compromised. So some of these Storm Vermin are pushing through. They're wavering as well as the Skinwolf Werekin's just getting all crunk and is pimp slapping some of those rats. He does cause fear, not terror, but we are able to actually break those guys, which is really nice. In the meantime, Wulfric, another big mistake. I sent him in ahead of time, not really respecting the Rat Ogres or Skrolk, but he did get the Libra Bubonicus on him, and he took a ton of damage from the Rat Ogres as well. So very, very good stuff there from the mighty Skaven. And it looks like he did summon some Plague Monks in the back line, which are going to be attacking my Javelins. The Berserkers here do have Fight or Die, and they're doing a lot of damage to the Rat Ogres and even starting to cut through the Storm Vermin. So the Berserkers, with a little bit of support, definitely can do well. Over here, we do have Marauders and Marauders, so they're a little bit blobbed up here, but we're still starting to get through the formation a little bit. Very, very close fight so far. Balance of power is pretty even, but I would say that the Skaven certainly have a slight advantage. So the Marauder Champions with Great Weapons are coming out of Auxiliary, and they're going to be engaging these Plague Monks to try and protect my Javelins and other troops here. So, and you can see Surtha Rick is going to be pushing through on his Chariot as well. I do like him on the Chariot, but part of me after this, after this initial engagement was like, it could have been kind of nice to have him on a horse, but again, the Chariot is so good against Skaven infantry. You can see the Burning Head is going to be going down, but it doesn't do as much damage against armor and things like that, so we do hit the Skaven formation, but it's not like if it were like Clan Rats or Plague Monks or Censor Bearers, but it certainly didn't do as much damage. I do have my Famir with Great Weapons going after these Rat Ogres here, so they're definitely going to take these Rat Ogres to Pound Town. It's going to be a pretty brutal affair as they do have anti-large, and what is going on? Did you guys see that spray right there? What was going on there? That was some trippy stuff, but regardless, the Famir with Great Weapons are taking it to these Rat Ogres, which is good, but this formation is looking pretty rough. You can see my Skin Wolf Arc, and a pretty expensive troop is pretty much fully surrounded by spears and low-tier rats, and it's very thematic. You're seeing like hundreds of rats drag down these big monsters. It's pretty cool. I do also get my Premier Balefiend to shut down these Globadiers because they were causing a ton of damage, so he was just nearby, and he's got his Pimp Cane, so hopefully he can do some pretty good work there. And Wulfric is also doing good. He was able to shut down the Globadiers, but Professor Pone doing a very good job with his Rat Ogres, as well as Lord Skrolk just chasing and using the Libra Bubonicus. And again, I've gotten really greedy with Wulfric. I keep over chasing, and he keeps just getting massively punished. I actually summoned the Pirate Boat here, and I didn't expect it to do damage against those guys, but it does have a Frostbite effect, so I was like, okay, maybe I can slow them and slip away, but it actually didn't work out too well. But those Rat Ogres are so close to breaking, so at this point I basically just got to fight or die. The Marauder Champions did well in the front line. In the back, the Javelins are taking a little bit of work. I have some Berserkers who I peeled off who are just eviscerating these rats here, which is very good. The bounce power is still really, really even. Professor Pone still does have that Plague Claw Catapult in the back online, which is shooting into some of my champions. But that was a pretty big mistake letting that thing live. I think if I had split up my forces a little bit more, I probably could have shut it down earlier. And you can see, sadly, I do have to use the Hunter of Champions on Skrolk to like get away because Wulfric was just getting whooped on right there. And I did also use the Sword of Torgball to rout off those Rat Ogres. But regardless, the Marauders are in here. They're probably enraged. They're going to do pretty good against these very tattered clan rats. You can see a second group of Marauders is coming in, so we should be able to finish off this Skaven formation right here. Very, very pitched fight. As my Javelins are going to be setting up to throw their spears, I think they're going to go after the Globadiers, who do have 100 armor, so it's not going to be the best, but regardless, damage is damage, and the second group of Marauders with 57 models is going to be charging in and hopefully able to finish those guys off. So we take a look at the battlefield, the numbers, 360 to about 540, so a pretty close fight proportionally. But as Wulfric does get a little bit more beat up and some of the Globadier fires coming in, the bounce power is shifting. And this artillery, even though it's low on ammo, considering the current state of the game, it probably still has enough ammunition to make a big impact here, so he can shoot wherever he wants. I am trying to chase down these Globadiers with my Marauder Champions, who should be able to catch him and lay a whooping, but the problem being is that Skrolk is pretty much full health. He does also have some very healthy Storm Vermin, so Skrolk running around with his Rod of Corruption is going to be very tough to take, especially if he stands on top of the Storm Vermin. And that was kind of why I was like, I wish Wulfric was on horseback so he could be a little bit of a better duelist. But regardless, we're going to charge into these guys who aren't braced. I know it seems risky, but if something isn't braced, you can usually get in there and get some free value. But regardless, I still take some heavy damage down to about 700. Skin Wolf Erkin coming in, so doing everything I can to just pound this group of Storm Vermin. And you can see the pirate boat, the Haggard pirate ship of the gods, is going to come through and cleave those guys. So that was really good. That was a great timing push from Wulfric, the Skin Wolf Erkin, as well as the pirate boat, and some Overwatch fire from the Javelins. But the balance of power is pretty heavy in these Skaven's favor. You can see a lot of their troops are rallying. They have Rat Ogres here, they have Rat Ogres here. There's just so much pressure coming. So at this point, like, okay, I'm going to be doing a bit of a tactical retreat. We were able to get a ton of value off the Storm Vermin there. We barely took any damage, but Skrolk is just kind of, he's moseying along over here. You can see he's kind of going to be leading these rats with his encouragement, shouting some, well, I guess it's, you would think you would worship Nurgle, but I'm pretty sure it's just the Great Horned Rat. I don't really know. Someone who's a little bit more familiar with lore can perhaps tell me. But these Berserkers are about to rout, but Wulfric gives them the fight or die, and they actually decide to die. So they're going to stand and fight to the bitter end with 100 models, or 100 HP, excuse me. 100 models would be pretty sweet. But the Skin Wolf Erkin, of course, is regenerating, but that Globadier fire coming in Overwatch, doing some really good damage to all my troops here, and you can see they're going to run from that heavy, heavy damage. And from here, it's basically just cleanup. The artillery of the Skaven is going to be doing great work against the Marauder Hunters. And that is going to be all she wrote. So very well played. It was definitely a very fun game. And yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the army breakdown. So if we look, I would say it was a bit of an engagement issue. So in the beginning, the way I engaged, I basically just sacrificed three groups of infantry. They just got pounded and overwhelmed, and my overload on the flank wasn't fast enough. I wasn't able to net some value, and I also let the Marauders and Berserkers blob up on that flank, so it was really good for the Skaven. And Pone, of course, capitalized with the Rod of Corruption, as well as his Plague Claw Catapult, so it was incredibly good stuff from him over there. And on top of that, the Marauder Hunters did a good job. The Famir, I probably should have kept them a little bit closer to the chest and just been a little bit more defensive. Also with Wulfric, I think there was some heavy overextending, so ultimately, I think the build was decent. The build, like, I had the tools to deal with, most of what the Skaven brought, but I think the execution was poor. I certainly made some pretty big blunders. So very well played to the mighty Professor Pone. He definitely handled business that game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing Norsca and Skaven in action. So have an excellent night, guys, and take care.